on a Sunday, the 5th of September, when the house was empty, he killed them with 2 shots. The truth was becoming apparent. The light of day was breaking. The count muttered: "Yes, that's what must have happened. I expect that my cousin d'Aigleroche—" "The murderer," Rénine continued, "stopped up the loophole neatly with a clod of earth. No one would ever know that the 2 dead bodies were decaying on the top of that tower, which was never visited and of which he took the precaution to demolish the wooden stairs. Nothing therefore remained for him to do but to explain the disappearance of his wife and his friend. This presented no difficulty. He accused them of having eloped together." Hortense gave a start. Suddenly, as though the last sentence were a complete and, to her, an absolutely unexpected revelation, she understood what Rénine was trying to convey. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean that Monsieur d'Aigleroche accused his wife and his friend of eloping together." "No, no!" she cried. "I can't allow that. You are speaking of a cousin of my uncle's. Why mix up the 2 stories?" "Why mix up this story with another which took place at that time?" said the prince. "But I am not mixing them up, my dear madame. There is only one story and I am telling it as it happened." Hortense turned to her uncle. He sat silent, with his arms folded, and his head remained in the shadow cast by the lamp-shade. Why had he not protested? Rénine repeated in a firm tone: "There is only one story. On the evening of that very day, the 5th of September, at 8 o'clock, Monsieur d'Aigleroche, doubtless alleging as his reason that he was going in pursuit of the runaway couple, left his house after boarding up the entrance. He went away, leaving all the rooms as they were and removing only the firearms from their glass case. At the last minute he had a presentiment, which has been justified to-day, that the discovery of the telescope, which had played so great a part in the preparation of his crime, might serve as a clue to an enquiry, and he threw it in the clock-case, where, as luck would have it, it interrupted the swing of the pendulum. This unreflecting action, one of those which every criminal inevitably commits, was to betray him 20 years later. Just now, the blows which I struck to force the door of the drawing-room released the pendulum. The clock was set going, struck 8 o'clock. And I possessed the clue of thread which was to lead me through the labyrinth." "Proofs!" stammered Hortense. "Proofs!" "Proofs?" replied Rénine in a loud voice. "Why, there are any number of proofs, and you know them as well as I do. Who could have killed at that distance of 800 yards except an expert shot, an ardent sportsman? You agree, Monsieur d'Aigleroche, do you not? Proofs? Why was nothing removed from the house? Nothing except the guns, those guns which an ardent sportsman cannot afford to leave behind. You agree, Monsieur d'Aigleroche, those guns which we find here hanging in trophies on the walls. Proofs? What about that date, the 5th of September, which was the date of the crime, and which has left such a horrible memory in the criminal's mind that every year at this time alone, he surrounds himself with distractions, and that every year on this same 5th of September he forgets his habits of temperance? Well, today is the 5th of September. Proofs? Why, if there weren't any others, would that not be enough for you?" And Rénine, flinging out his arm, pointed to the Comte d'Aigleroche, who, terrified by this evocation of the past, had sunk huddled into a chair and was hiding his head in his hands. Hortense did not attempt to argue with him. She had never liked her uncle, or rather her husband's uncle. She now accepted the accusation laid against him. 60 seconds passed. Then Monsieur d'Aigleroche walked up to them and said: "Whether the story be true or not, you can't call a husband a criminal for avenging his honor and killing his faithless wife." "No," replied Rénine, "but I have told only the first version of the story. There's another, which is infinitely more serious and more probable, one to which a more thorough investigation would be sure to lead." "What do you mean?" "I mean this. It may not be a matter of a husband taking the law into his own hands, as I charitably supposed. It may be a matter of a ruined man who covets his friend's money and his friend's wife, and who, with this object in view, to secure his freedom, to get rid of his friend and of his own wife, draws them into a trap, suggests to them that they should visit that lonely tower, and kills them by shooting them from a distance safely under cover. "No, no!" the count protested. "No, all that is untrue." "I don't say it isn't. I am basing my accusation on proofs, but also on intuitions and arguments which up to now have been extremely accurate. All the same, I admit that the second version may be incorrect. But if so, why feel any remorse? One does not feel remorse for punishing guilty people." "One does for taking life. It is a crushing burden to bear." Was it to give himself greater strength to bear this burden that Monsieur d'Aigleroche afterwards married his victim's widow? For that, sir, is the crux of the question. What was the motive of that marriage? Was Monsieur d'Aigleroche penniless? Was the woman he was taking as his second wife rich? Or were they both in love with each other, and did Monsieur d'Aigleroche plan with her to kill his first wife and the husband of his second wife? These are problems to which I do not know the answer. They have no interest for the moment. But the police, with all the means at their disposal, would have no great difficulty in elucidating them. Monsieur d'Aigleroche staggered, and had to steady himself against the back of a chair. Livid in the face, he spluttered: "Are you going to inform the police?" "No, no," said Rénine. "To begin with, there is the statute of limitations. Then there are 20 years of remorse and dread, a memory which will pursue the criminal to his dying hour, accompanied no doubt by domestic discord, hatred, a daily hell. And in the end, the necessity of returning to the tower and removing the traces of the two murders, the frightful punishment of climbing that tower, of touching those skeletons, of undressing them and burying them. That will be enough. We will not ask for more. We will not give it to the public to batten on and create a scandal which would recoil upon Monsieur d'Aigleroche's niece. No, let us leave this disgraceful business alone." The count resumed his seat at the table, with his hands clutching his forehead, and asked: "Then why—" "Why do I interfere?" said Rénine. "What you mean is that I must have had some object in speaking. That is so. There must indeed be a penalty, however slight, and our interview must lead to some practical result. But have no fear. Monsieur d'Aigleroche will be let off lightly." The contest was ended. The count felt that he had only a small formality to fulfill, a sacrifice to accept. And recovering some of his self-assurance, he said, in an almost sarcastic tone: "What's your price?" Rénine burst out laughing: "Splendid! You see the position. Only you make a mistake in drawing me into the business. I'm working for the glory of the thing. In that case, you will be called upon at most to make restitution. Restitution?" Rénine leant over the table and said: "In one of those drawers there is a deed awaiting your signature. It is a draft agreement between you and your niece Hortense Daniel relating to her private fortune, which fortune was squandered and for which you are responsible. Sign the deed." Monsieur d'Aigleroche gave a start. "Do you know the amount?" "I don't wish to know." "And if I refuse?" "I shall ask to see the Comtesse d'Aigleroche." Without further hesitation, the count opened a drawer, produced a document on stamped paper, and quickly signed it. "Here you are," he said, "and I hope—" "You hope, as I do, that you and I may never have any future dealings. I'm convinced of it. I shall leave this evening. Your niece, no doubt, to-morrow. Good-bye." In the drawing-room, which was still empty while the guests at the house were dressing for dinner, Rénine handed the deed to Hortense. She seemed dazed by all that she had heard. And the thing that bewildered her even more than the relentless light shed upon her uncle's past was the miraculous insight and amazing lucidity displayed by this man, the man who for some hours had controlled events and conjured upon before her eyes the actual scenes of a tragedy which no one had beheld. "Are you satisfied with me?" he asked. She gave him both her hands. "You have saved me from Rossini. You have given me back my freedom and my independence. I thank you from the bottom of my heart." "Oh, that's not what I am asking you to say," he answered. "My first and main object was to amuse you. Your life seemed so humdrum and lacking in the unexpected. Has it been so to-day?" "How can you ask such a question? I have had the strangest and most stirring experiences." "That is life," he said, "when one knows how to use one's eyes. Adventure exists everywhere, in the meanest hovel, under the mask of the wisest of men.